monster here right now, in fact. And I'll show you quickly. Right now there's some monsters in on the VPS on dollar yen, pound yen, and Aussie yen. Aussie yen actually got itself an entry on the 5-minute. So the dollar yen's only got its first entry in, and it's up 20 pips just on the first entry. Aussie yen's up about 6 pip. Pound yen is up about 20 pips. Aussie yen backed up enough, not too much. I guess it was pretty close because they're not too very far apart in pips. Basically, the monster trend is when, okay, the 1-minute monster is you start with the 1-minute chart, and what it needs is the L1 below the L2. The L1 needs to also be below the L7, and the white zone needs to be expanded. All right, and then however many clear lanes you decide. So you need that same pattern on 3 time frames. In this case, we go in this order: 1, 5, 15, 60, 240. So 60 being the 1 hour, 240 also being the 4 hour. So we need the 1, the 5, and the 15 for a 1-minute monster. All right, so the 5-minute needs to look the same. It is. It's expanding. What I mean by the same is L1 below the L2, L1 below the L7, and expanding white zone. Right? You also need the same thing on the 15-minute. And do we have that? We do. It's the white zone's expanding. The last white zone incident we had was an expansion, and it's done it 3 times, so it's definitely expanding. L1 below the L2, L1 below the L7. Okay, so that's what you need. Once you have that, then the monster will enter at, depending on your settings, and if I just show you really quick, I go to properties and we go to the 1-minute trend. This is the 1-minute monster. It doesn't say monster anywhere on here right now. It might change some of that, but all you need to do to activate, turn the 1-minute trend into a monster trend is just enable the 5-minute scale in, set that to true, and or the 15-minute scale in. So you can just skip the 5-minute and you go right to the 15 if you want. You can do 1 at the 5, 1 at the 15, each one. And then obviously you want to adjust your stop accordingly. So I've used a 60-minute box stop. If you don't want to use the 15-minute entry and you just want to use the 1 in the 5, maybe you'll want to use a 15-minute box L1 stop, right? You can also use the L2 on the 15-minute. Maybe you want to use the 15-minute but use the L2 as a stop, and the L7. I think these two can sometimes often be a bigger stop than the 60-minute box. Okay, so that's how you do it. And so these other 2 scale-ins will be slaves of the main one. So when the main one goes into profit, in this case, so after 15 pips of profit and it finds a 2-column roadblock, it'll exit. And that's based on the first entry. And those other entries will exit with this first entry. For what I just said, for that to work, you need to give it a big stop and target, like 100 pips on each side, because that's not what's going to be actually used. It'll never use these. Now what you can do is say on the target, make it 20 pips only, or 15 pips if you wanted. You got to add that extra digit, 0. And then each entry will have its own target of 15 pips, and then they'll manage a little bit differently in that way. In that case, technically you could have the 15-minute one enter, profit, and then pull back and enter again, and profit again. You could. That possibility is there. But right now I'm mainly testing it as all one big trade with multiple entries. So I just base it on, just give it a big stop and let the dynamics work. All right, so I mean, that's, in a nutshell, that's what it is. It's nothing more than just lining up multiple time frames with those expanded white zones. All right, let me just see real quick before I get into what the breakout was doing. Let's see, so I noticed something. The pound yen closed. So let's go to the experts tab. All right, so monster short closed, but we didn't have any scale-ins entered. So it tells you no scale-ins were entered. This is actually a compounding account that I'm testing the monster on. It's actually the first trade it took. Okay, this testing account compounding. So that very first trade it took. It's based on 20 pips equals 2%, and it's entering a half position at each entry. Oh, it just closed out another one just now, just in front of us here. The dollar yen closed out. This one went from 14 to 85 short, so that was 30 pips. 14, 85, 31 pips. This one went from 75 to 55. That's only 20 pips. So that one went 20 pips. Let me just see what the settings are for this testing account. Okay, so 22. I put the growth target really high because really I just wanted to take trades. So ignore this for now. I'm not doing it on a 2% basis. I really just want to see how much this can grow an account just running. The 2% is kind of like your daily target for your trading, and you could easily do that on an account, put a 2% growth and then have it shut down. But for these purposes, for this test, I just want it to run. I mean, if it manages to hit 10% growth in one day, then it will shut down for that day. I'm fine with that. So it's box entry, half a position at each entry. It waits for the proper dynamic. So 15-minute entry gets a 15-minute dynamic, 5 gets a 5 dynamic, and it uses a 60-minute box stop. Oh, and then 15 pips, it looks for a 2-column roadblock, right? So already the two ones that have closed out, one made 20 and one made 31. And that's just looking for a 2-column after 15 pips. And one already got a 31 pip. So both of them have been well over the 15. That's the difference between a 2-column roadblock and a 1-column roadblock. If you put a 1 here, it'll almost every time give you the number that you put there. But by putting 2, it's got to go out and find it now. So just an example, this right here, the first two monsters have closed out, one at 31 and one at 20. And that's because the setting is at after 15 pips, look for a 2-column roadblock. That's what I'm testing right now, and so far so good. And it's still got this Aussie yen, but I'm just going to let it do its thing. I don't want to touch it. That's the whole idea.